the hard things for me when it comes to being a DM, the sort of pitfalls you can fall into, or the things to struggle with. Scheduling is very frustrating for any DM.
Oh no, yes.
It's and I will hold my hands up. There are times where I can't make a session. That's just sometimes the internet goes down or the computer doesn't work or whatever. But trying to arrange 4, 5, 6 people to be in one place at one time, it helps a lot more now that we can do it all digitally. But it is hard work, especially when you've planned a session and then it gets cancelled last minute. The other thing that I have always found quite hard is it's players sometimes will tell you how great sessions are and how good they've of a time they've had, but then sometimes they won't, and you'll sit there and it's sort of that imposter syndrome. It's that, was I good enough? Was it a fun session? I will sit there maybe 2 hours after a session, and I finish my sessions at like 10, half 10 at night sometimes, and I'm laying there till midnight just overthinking for hours,
Oh yes.
playing over
Oh
scenarios
yes.
that happened. I didn't do that right. I missed out this. I should have done that, and that can be quite hard at
Yeah.
times. It's
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's a struggle sometimes because you don't know what your players are thinking, and they are reacting well and they're having a good time, and it seems like they are, but there's always that wanting to be better. There's always that you always make mistakes. Mistakes happen in every session, from a DM or from a player. They just happen, and sometimes you can't help that. But they're the ones that sort of, no matter how good the session feels like it went, you will sit and you will worry about those moments where you didn't quite
Yeah.
catch what someone said correctly, or
Yeah.
you didn't quite catch something that one of the creatures could have done, or a resistance, or something like that.
Yeah. Is there a situation, if you don't mind to share, where you really had a situation where it really got really tough between you and the master on a level where it was difficult to continue, and how you approach that with a player?
I have had, unfortunately, a few players what were difficult, and what we refer to now as sort of problem players. Um, yeah, so an example of that, and this is from years ago. Um, One player that he would just talk over me or talk over other players, sort of put their will onto what other people should be doing, um, put their energy into the wrong things, looking at what everyone else should do, or criticizing other people's decisions, or just being someone who just wanted the spotlight constantly, and anytime anyone else had a moment in the spotlight, didn't like it and acted up and played up. And I think it gets to that point, and for new dungeon masters, it would be tough because you don't know if the problem is you, or if it's the other players, or if it's this one specific player, and you start getting complaints. For me, assuming that everyone playing in your games is an adult, you are all adults, and the only way to resolve stuff like that is to tell people and to be completely honest with the fact that you are causing issues, you are talking over me, or you are arguing points that I have made, or you are belittling players' choices, and I can't really stand for it in my games. I can't have one person ruining the game for everyone else, and that could. I've had times where I've had to remove players from games, which isn't nice to do. It's not fun. It's not what I want to do. But I haven't thought for a long time about how hard that could be for a new dungeon master.
Do you
The
ever have doubts about it's you? You know what kind of
Absolutely,
like process you're going through? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because I don't think there are many dungeon masters, games masters that don't have unless they're very egotistical, don't have that sort of imposter syndrome-esque feeling of, did I do it well enough? Am I doing well enough? Is it me that's causing the issue? Am I being too overbearing? Am I trying to impose my will onto players too much? And it can be hard. It can be a hard process to deal with. It's sometimes it can feel like a very lonely island being a DM.
Yes.
The players all have each other, and
Yes.
us DMs then
And
go into the back ends of Reddit where we find other DMs and
yes.
make sure it's not us that's being the asshole, it's the players.
Yes.
It can be really tough, and for new DMs and for anyone looking to do that kind of thing, all I can say and advise is, it isn't you. It probably isn't you. It might be, you never know, but it probably isn't you. If it doesn't take much for you to be able to speak to other people in the group and say, I've been noticing this or I've been noticing that. What is your opinion, or what is the feeling amongst the players in regards to
Yeah.
this? And then you can see it's not you.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is to talk, right? And for me, that has always been a very difficult time in the beginning, but it needs a lot of reflection as well. I think that is the interesting part about mastering, right? As we spoke before, of course, can't know all the rules, but a lot of things is also, being there for the players, managing it, and creating an environment has much more to do, as you said, scheduling, but it goes beyond that, right? Because you provide a platform, and it can be lonely because you're the organizer, you're the project manager, you're the master, and there's and sometimes you have also discussion with the player. Maybe he doesn't feel it anymore with the character after a while, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's so deep in the story, I need to work with it, and so there's a plethora of things that always comes into it. So I think a lot of people, and I don't know how you feel about it, or a lot of tips. I don't want to say that all new DMs or DMs that exist already for many years are that way, but a lot of the tips that I see is all about, the mechanics, the rules, what kind of like dices and DM screen you should get, how you the lazy dungeon kind of like approach with the strong start, stuff like that. That's all fantastic, all absolutely great. But I think the soft skill part of it, even though it exists and some people have talked about it, is something that I always feel someone also needs to have aware of, that there's also skills there to learn to be a good communicator outside of the game, right? Because for me, and I don't know how you feel, is we masters have sometimes the feeling, if we write in the WhatsApp or Discord, we are the most important one. No one really cares, because I always tell myself, no one really cares what I have to say. All the world building that I do, no one really cares. They only care when they sit on the table at that very moment, because everyone has their own kind of like their own time schedule, their private lives, right? For us, it's a 24/7 thing. And we forget sometimes totally that for others it isn't, even though they enjoy our game at the table at that very time.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's tough. It can feel um and not that I begrudge any of my players this fact. I choose to DM and I love DMing. But sometimes there are players who don't realize that, yes, you turn up and you play D&D, but I've actually spent the last 2 days planning these sessions, doing all this stuff. You turn up and you roll some dice and you do some role play, and as much as I love them, players of, especially newer players, can be very quick to forget that they don't turn up and that stuff hasn't been planned for me. I'm not just turning up on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day. Like I'm putting time into this and I'm putting effort into this. And a lot of you see, and I agree, the tips that you see online are great for the inside of the game DMing stuff. But when it comes to complaints about other players, complaints, scheduling issues, that sort of stuff is never really talked about. It's never really spoken about when it comes to here's a guide, here's the 10 best tips on how to be the best DM. But what about the other stuff? You're
Yes.
teaching us that, yeah, you need to be putting voices on, or you need to be doing the rule of call and all that stuff. But then when one of your players is struggling in life and they turn to you, and you are becoming this person that has to communicate, and they see you as this sort of leader of this group, so they come to you with stuff.
Correct.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I've had groups where no one would join. We'd do it over Discord, and no one would join the call unless I was in the call. So I could be running 5 minutes late. No one would sit there and talk. I would join, and then everyone jumped in as if they were sitting waiting for me. And it's almost like the teacher, as such. Like no one wants to say anything or do anything until the dungeon master's there. And they're bits that
Yes.
you don't get taught when you're watching
Yeah.
all these YouTube videos. And the YouTube videos are great. There are lots of helpful tips and advice out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I don't think anyone really opens your mind up to the fact that you are more than a dungeon master when you become a dungeon master. You are a confidant. You are a leaning post for some of their problems. You are a friend. Like it's completely different. There's so much to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you just put it one word that I love it, overused with myself every time when people talk to me. But the leadership is a very important part of it. And again, that's the difference for me always. And since I work kind of like in the space in my professional life, it is not managing, it's about really leading and bringing people together. And I think there are great YouTube videos out there about leadership and how bringing together. It has nothing to do with dungeon mastery, but I will always recommend to people watch those as well. Especially if you're not familiar with it, what that actually means, project management, especially if you do a campaign, because the one thing you can build your homebrew world, but how to manage it and how to also see what works, not works, the learning of discarding stuff fast, it hurts, but sometimes discard it, it doesn't work, let's move on to the next one, because there's always space. And this is especially, I think, I have, again, since I do it in a professional life, that part was for me much more easier to handle and to understand, and also be part of the journey of each player, because I have many discussions with other masters where they feel very frustrated about the players don't react, they don't build their characters. And I always said, yes, but you need to lead them that way, because they have other stuff to do. You as a master, you think the whole world surrounds on this campaign. It just doesn't. And you just need to have the self-reflection about it, that you are not the thing is not the most important. For instance, I do, we have a WhatsApp group, so we don't use Discord for my campaign. I post from time to time world building stuff about characters, do small videos, do a short, whatever. With 100% certainty, I know maybe two. My girlfriend,
Who has to care?
No. She just said no. Okay, one person out of 5 players, we read it. But it is an exercise for me because I love it. And I tag it really like world building, because one player said, do I need to read this? Because you post so many things. Is this important for the next session? I said, no, I will tag it now as world building post, that you don't need to worry. It's just for your enjoyment and keeping the hype for the campaign up for those who want to. Everyone else, it's fine. You don't need to read it, watch it, or whatever I post. But this, not taking one to that you want to important, but understanding your role. And as you said, it's like the teacher or whatever. And that doesn't mean you are important. It just means you need to understand that a lot of people, since you are the master, a lot of people are looking, okay, when is the schedule? Okay, what does the master say about this and that? That it is important to know that that is also your role, and not always expecting players to always deliver. You need to talk to them, or maybe just say, okay, I will sit down with you on Wednesday, so 2 days before the session, and let's just have an hour together and talk this a little bit together too.
Yeah. And that's why, again, that's another tip that you'll see loads of times, but I will always stand by is why session zeros, I think, are so important.
Yes.
They're so important, because you can manage those expectations of not only the game,
Yes.
but how you're going to be in that leadership role.
Yeah.
It sort of sets that role up straight away,
Yeah.
and then allows you to tell everyone, right, I'm going to release the schedule on this time, I'm going to be doing this,
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing that, and it gives you that platform to get that communication underway straight away before any dice have been rolled, before any characters have been made. Sometimes it just gives you that platform to start that leadership and have that boundary set early of letting players know and I don't even know what I'm trying to, giving them that communication
Yeah.
straight away of this is what I'm going to do. But then, as you said, that's more project management. It's more work style stuff than it is running a D&D campaign. I think that can probably be a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't think anyone who is sitting there now thinking right at this second, right, I really want to be a dungeon master. I'm going to have a look at the DMG. I'm going to watch some YouTube videos, and it's going to be absolutely perfect. I am going to be the next Matt Mercer. Are not realizing how much management that man is having to do to us. Can you
Absolutely.
imagine controlling them people?
Oh, poor
Sam
gosh, no.
Regal?
Oh no, gosh,
Not
no.
a chance.
I mean, I would be afraid to even think about it. But that's the thing. Session zero, and here comes again my analogy, again boring people out, but it's really true. Is it's project management, because what it is for a project or a campaign, it's a kickoff meeting. And what the kickoff meeting does is, even in the professional world, they don't do it correct, but if you do it correct, it sets a baseline. It sets baselines and boundaries. And it is a reminder. We just had now with the same group that I did a 3-year campaign, and now started the second part of it. We just had a session where one really needs to go back because they had a little bit of a meta in-game conflict, which a little bit caused a little bit of a distress. But since the people know each other for a long time, they initiated the discussion right after. And it was a great discussion. But I also just reminded them to look at the pillars of their in-game relationships, what they built in session zero, to really remind themselves what they actually was the intention. You can always deviate the intention, but it always needs to be kind of like a group decision to go there. And I think to create that baseline is very important. For instance, with the one which you said, not talking over each other. You could now is something that you maybe in a session zero can talk about and really say it's important, even though maybe in an RP situation, maybe natural, it still interrupts maybe the flow, or a person feels too attacked when a person just talks over, even though RP wise it would make sense, because RP makes ARP as long as everyone has fun. But as soon as somebody feels like excluded or hurt, I think we need to be a little bit stepping down and get a little bit back to the reality that we are all humans on the table. Yeah.
Agreed completely. And going back to what the initial question was about, and the player that I did eventually kick from a game, he had been talking over everyone during roleplay moments. And one of those players was just sort of coming out of their shell in the roleplay sense.
Yeah.
And it knocked them straight back into it, because she thought no one really is interested in what I've got to say because
Yeah.
they're talking over me.
Yeah.
And although it might to him have seemed that that's what his character would do, you are then spoiling someone else's fun.
Yes.
And that person has spent weeks building up the confidence to have this moment in the spotlight, their first ever moment in the spotlight.
Yes.
And it's just been yanked away from them by someone.
Yes.
So that person might now take another 6 months, a year to be able to do that again. And that's not fair. And that's ruining someone else's fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that rule, that in a lot of ways, in a lot of YouTube videos, but also back in the days when we didn't had a lot and had pen and paper just for pen and paper's sake, is that just everyone has fun. Is not everyone, and everyone means everyone, and everyone is a big word because that entails a lot of individuals. And on the table, on a table, be it now online or IRL, is a lot of people open up to each other at RP. It's a very vulnerable place to be for a lot of new players as well. And even though the master is responsible for creating kind of like the baseline for it, it is though the players as well that need to create that security at that table as well. And that's the responsibility of all, right? To ensure that everyone has fun, that you, of course, test the boundaries in RP, but then still not forgetting that there's still a human being behind, especially,
Humans at the
everyone
end
knows.
of.
We all say we are introverts, but a lot of DMs, we are not really. We're a little bit in between. But we have a lot of really introverted players that maybe crawl out for that one game a week to be in a social space, and that's enough for them. And for those, that game is as well, right? And so we need to be very conscious about that too. Yeah.
Completely agreed. And one thing I will add on to that, when you say that everyone needs to be having fun, is a lot of DMs forget that they also need to be having fun. A lot of them think that they are running a game for the players, but you are not. You are running it for yourselves as well. If you are not enjoying it, you shouldn't be running it.
Yes.
You need to enjoy yourselves.
Or change something.
Or change.
Yeah.
Exactly that. I think it gets forgotten about very quickly, and there are a lot of videos and tips and guides on how to make the players better and how to be a better DM for your players. But be a better DM for yourself, and you will be a better DM for your players, because you will have so much fun. That will radiate onto your players anyway.
And again, communication is key. If you're a DM that over-prepares, I am one sort of a DM. I know that I can say to the players, look, next Saturday, I'm going to, spitball it a little bit. I didn't have the time. But there was a time that I felt really bad about it. Now, but a lot of players will understand. A lot of players will feel okay. So yeah, you don't need to do those 6 hours as long as we can hang out together, have a fun time, can roll some dice. It doesn't always need to be, fleshed out
Exactly
as you do.
And most DMs aren't doing what I am doing, which is grabbing random people off the internet who have never played before and sticking them together.
It's beautiful.
So most people that do it are doing it with friends anyway.
Yes.
And you'll find that most of the time, them friends, D&D is sort of the thing in the background to hanging out with your friends.
Yes.
So even though you will want to take it as a DM to make it the priority of everything, because it's what we do.
It's the next Lord of the Rings.
People are probably really bored of me talking about D&D.
Yes.
Like if you're thinking about DMing and you have a group of friends and they want to hang out and play some D&D, and you're taking it upon yourself to learn how to DM for that, the DM is the playing the PlayStation part, or the going to a pub and having a drink part. The main part is spending time with each other.
Yes.
And enjoying it. And that it still speaks for my groups that I have now, because they have formed friendships and they have formed bonds, and they enjoy playing with each other. Yes. It's not just they want to get their D&D fix, which they do, but they also want to be playing that D&D game with the people that they're playing it with, because they enjoy that, and that's fun.
Yes. And we're just one part of the puzzle to enable such a space, but nothing more. And we also need to have fun, because we are also part of, even though our role is different, we're still part of that campaign, and still need to be part, have fun. Yeah.
It's a story we're all telling together, all of us.
Yes.
And I am no more important to that story than any of those players.
Absolutely. Well, that is great. So, Louis, what is kind of like, so the last thing that you would tell a master, or what can you give?
The last thing that I would tell any dungeon master, and not just a brand new one, but just any, is probably what I just said, to be honest. Have fun. And that's not just in the regards I was just talking, but also in the campaign. Don't be afraid to be silly. Don't be afraid to mess around. Don't be afraid to allow things that the rules don't necessarily say should happen, but you're getting that cool moment and your players are really going to absolutely love it and remember it for a long time. and so are you. So just have fun with it. It is a game, and all DMs, new or old, get very caught up in being a DM.
Yes.
And we spend a lot of time prepping and making sure that we do stuff for the players and that they have a good time, but never really reflecting on how far we've come from when we first started, or how good our games actually are and how much your players do enjoy them. So every now and then, before a session, after a session, during a session, just sit and have that moment of, I'm having a lot of fun.
So I'm guessing your players will watch this.
They will be.
But let's say, what would you tell players in general? The one thing that they could maybe do the next session for their DM, without saying that it's our message to your players.
Deliveries of beer are always welcome. So is food. No, my players. If it was to my players, it would be to carry on doing what they're doing, because they've come such a long way from when they started. From people who, some of them hadn't even watched. Like you would assume. I assume when I send a message out that these people have started watching Critical Role, or they've seen YouTube videos and watched Let's Plays, and some of them just haven't even done that. They have no basis whatsoever apart from the fact that they want to learn D&D.
Yes.
And they've come so far in such a short space of time that to my players, it would be just enjoy it and keep doing what you're doing, because you're all amazing. To any other players who aren't my players, buy your DM some pizza and beer, because he deserves it.
I tell to my players, he's right. You should.
Buy your DM pizza and beer because he deserves it. He works his butt off. That would be my tip to players.
Perfect.
And have fun.
That is great.
We're all here to have fun.
Perfect. Louis, it was a complete joy. And I am very eager to see what you're doing with your... I will definitely watch it. And maybe at some point we can talk about it again, because it was wonderful to talk to you. It was a very interesting to exchange with a very empathic master, because the fun part is we just met after the Critical Role while outside smoking. We have never talked before. I have not expected that we are on such a wavelength, and I really was a joy to talking to you and seeing what your experience is with the space of being a master, but also enabling others to have fun. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's as you said, meeting someone, having a smoke, and deciding to exchange details and the possibility of this happening. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed every minute. It's been such a laugh.